Have you ever had that unsettling feeling that despite all our advancements, all our access to information, humanity sometimes feels like it's drifting into a fog of collective confusion, a kind of shared short-sightedness where common sense becomes a rare commodity and critical thinking an endangered species? It's like we're all part of this vast, interconnected brain, yet the signals are getting mixed. The connections are fraying, and the collective intelligence is somehow less than the sum of its parts. We live in an age that promised enlightenment, a golden era of knowledge and understanding. Yet we often find ourselves scrolling endlessly, consuming bite-sized opinions, mistaking noise for wisdom, and mistaking outrage for insight. Have you noticed how easily narratives spread, even if they lack depth or evidence? How quickly a half-truth can become a widely accepted fact, simply because enough people repeat it, or because it aligns with a certain emotional resonance. Today, we're going to embark on a fascinating and perhaps a little uncomfortable journey into the hidden psychological traps that allow collective stupidity to spread, to fester, right beneath the surface of our modern society. We'll peel back the layers, not to judge, not to blame, but to understand the subtle mechanisms at play, the silent forces that shape our beliefs, our decisions, and ultimately, the very fabric of our shared reality. Stay with me, because recognizing these traps is the first step, the crucial first step, towards reclaiming our individual clarity and perhaps igniting a spark of collective wisdom once more. Think about it for a moment. Really let the thought sink in. How often do you find yourself nodding along, agreeing with something you hear or read, not because you've deeply analyzed it, not because you've weighed all the evidence, but because it just feels right, or because everyone else seems to be saying it? This isn't a flaw in your character. It's a fundamental aspect of human psychology, a shortcut our brains are wired to take, often without us even realizing it. We are social creatures, profoundly influenced by our environment, by the people around us, by the prevailing currents of thought, and this very social nature, which once helped us survive in ancient tribes, can now, in our hyper-connected, information-saturated world, become a vulnerability, a pathway for collective irrationality to take root and to spread. We tend to outsource our thinking, to defer to others, to follow the lead of the perceived majority. This tendency is so deeply ingrained, so powerful, that it can make smart, capable individuals act in ways that, in retrospect, seem astonishingly naive or even utterly illogical. It's a paradox, isn't it? That in a world where individual expression is celebrated, where everyone has a platform, the pressure to conform, to think alike, to feel alike, has never been stronger. It's as if the very tools that give us a voice are simultaneously weaving a web of conformity around our thoughts, gently nudging us towards a shared and often simplistic understanding of the world. This isn't about blaming technology alone. It's about understanding the interplay between our ancient human wiring and the unprecedented pressures of the digital age, the constant stream of notifications, the algorithmic feeds, the echo chambers, all conspiring to create a landscape where nuanced thought struggles to breathe, where simplistic narratives, often driven by emotion rather than reason, gain traction with alarming speed. We're living through an experiment, a grand, uncontrolled social experiment, and the results are, well, they're complex, they're often unsettling, and they demand our conscious attention, our unwavering vigilance. If we are to navigate these currents without losing our intellectual footing entirely, we need to recognize the subtle whispers, the gentle pushes that guide our collective consciousness, sometimes towards brilliance, but often towards something far less intelligent, far more superficial, and ultimately far more dangerous. One of the most insidious traps, the silent architect of collective stupidity, is the sheer volume of information we face every single day. Think about it. A century ago, knowledge was scarce, prized, hard-won. Today, it's a torrent, an avalanche, overwhelming our senses, our capacity to process. This phenomenon, what psychologists call cognitive overload, isn't just a minor annoyance. It fundamentally changes how we think, how we learn, or rather, how we fail to learn effectively. When faced with too much data, our brains don't suddenly become supercomputers. Quite the opposite. They become overwhelmed, fatigued, and prone to taking mental shortcuts. We skim, we scan, we consume headlines without delving into the details. We prioritize brevity over depth. This isn't laziness, it's a survival mechanism, a way to cope with the impossible demands placed on our attention. But the consequence is profound. It means we rarely engage with information on a deep, critical level. We become experts at knowing about things rather than understanding them. We accumulate facts, often disconnected and superficial, without weaving them into a coherent worldview, without questioning their provenance, their underlying assumptions, or their broader implications. Imagine trying to drink from a fire hose. You get wet, but you don't actually quench your thirst. In the same way, we are constantly doused with information, but true intellectual nourishment, genuine understanding, often eludes us. This state of perpetual partial understanding, of knowing just enough to feel informed, but not enough to be truly wise, creates a fertile ground for collective stupidity to flourish. Because when we operate on half-truths, on fragmented knowledge, on easily digestible sound bites, we become susceptible, easily swayed by simple answers to complex problems, easily manipulated by those who can craft the most appealing or the most emotionally resonant narrative, regardless of its factual basis. We become less discerning, more reactive, our critical faculties dulled by the sheer onslaught of data, the very tool designed to enlighten us. The internet, the global repository of all human knowledge, paradoxically, can become the very instrument that keeps us perpetually on the surface, skimming, never truly diving deep enough to discover the pearls of wisdom that lie beneath. It's a cruel irony, isn't it, that in the age of infinite information, true wisdom often feels scarcer than ever before. This constant state of cognitive overload, of surface-level processing, also leads us directly to another psychological trap, the power of social proof, and its darker cousin, groupthink. Our brains are exquisitely wired for social connection, for belonging, and part of that wiring involves looking to others for cues on how to behave, what to believe, what is acceptable, what is true. This is called social proof, and it's a powerful force. Think about how we choose restaurants, often picking the one with the longest line, or how a product with many 5-star reviews seems inherently more trustworthy. We subconsciously assume that if many others are doing it or believing it, there must be a good reason. They must be right. This mechanism, while often helpful for making quick decisions in uncertain situations, becomes incredibly dangerous when applied to complex social issues, to political discourse, to matters requiring independent critical thought. When everyone around us, especially within our social groups or online communities, seems to hold a particular view, seems to react a certain way, we feel an immense internal pressure to conform, to align our own thoughts, our own expressions, even if deep down we have doubts, even if our own reasoning suggests otherwise. This isn't just about peer pressure in a high school hallway. It's a pervasive, subtle force that shapes entire public opinions. It leads to a phenomenon known as groupthink, where the desire for harmony, for consensus within a group, overrides a realistic appraisal of alternatives or the expression of dissenting opinions. People silence themselves, not out of malice, but out of a genuine fear of ostracism, of being seen as the other, of breaking the comfortable illusion of agreement. Imagine a group of smart people sitting in a meeting discussing a crucial decision. If one strong voice or even a perceived majority starts leaning in one direction, it takes immense courage, an almost superhuman act of defiance for someone to stand up and say, "Wait a minute, I think we're missing something here," or "I see a fundamental flaw in this logic." Often, they won't. They'll go along to get along. Their individual intelligence, their critical faculties, momentarily suspended in favor of group cohesion. And when this happens on a societal scale, when entire populations are subtly nudged toward shared beliefs, shared outrage, shared solutions, without genuine, open, robust debate, without the uncomfortable friction of differing perspectives, then collective stupidity isn't just a possibility. It becomes an inevitability.